From a defabricated solar-powered garden shed in Rockland County, New York, USA, this is Stand Up with Pete Dominic. On today's episode, tips on keeping cool during the latest heat wave when you've suddenly realized you have third-degree burns. And now, the podcast host who has no worries for such things because he does all of his work in a garden shed, Pete Dominic!
Oh, Pico, thank you very much. That's right, no third-degree burns here, but what does high temperature, what kind of burn does that cause? Because it is hot out there, everybody. It is the beginning of July, of course, here, and we have broken more records, yay, for world temperatures. I'll be talking to World Wildlife Fund organization Dr. Rebecca Shaw, and I'll drop that later on today. Today, though, I've got a very special conversation with our favorite comedian and impressionist and lawyer, J.L. Cauvin, who's got a brand new special that finally has dropped, and you can watch that tonight. He wants you to watch it tonight on YouTube at, I think, 9 p.m. So all the details, well, we'll talk about it during our conversation today and in the show notes for today's conversation. But a few things I do want to mention before I get to my conversation with JL. Of course, it is Thursday. That means I will be hosting a hangout for any paid subscribers. You should be getting an email, a link along with the show today. I hope to see you tonight at 8 Eastern. Sadly, it seemed like one of the top stories from Wednesday was that there was cocaine, a small baggie of cocaine found in the White House. It's outrageous that this is a story that is getting hardly any attention. I don't know where it should be placed in the news, but nowhere near the top. During the White House press briefing, there were like 15 versions of the same question about cocaine in the White House, which was likely brought in by a tourist. It took until the third row to get a reporter asking about Russian explosives on a Ukrainian nuclear power plant, which is a perfect example of upside-down beltway press priorities, according to my friend Todd Zwillick at Vice, who covered Congress for years. And by the way, I mean, people are insinuating that it was Joe Biden's cocaine. I mean, Donald Trump, of course, insinuated that he was doing cocaine with Hunter. That's a real, that he actually said that in a Truth Social post. But can you call him Sleepy Joe and be upset that he has cocaine? Do you want him up or not? Someone else wrote on Twitter. Lots of other people making jokes that Don Jr. left it there. Obviously jokes that it was Hunter Biden's cocaine. Donald Trump even said he thinks it's Jack Smith's cocaine because he looks like a crackhead to him. He actually wrote that in a Truth Social tweet. Or put a different way, Donald Trump, or a person that is clearly under investigation by a federal prosecutor who has tried other world leaders for war crimes at the International Criminal Court at The Hague, Jack Smith. He's publicly calling that guy a crackhead. Oh, and not to be outdone by paying attention to something that deserves no attention, and I'm only making fun of it, got so much attention, is Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, who tweeted cocaine was found in the West Wing over the 4th of July weekend. Yet the media's response is rather nonchalant. Imagine if this had happened under a Republican administration. Are you serious? Oh, I was really pissed that anybody was talking about this yesterday. The only reason I'm bringing it up is that it's not something that should be really brought up. That's my opinion. I don't know. Maybe they could bring up the fact that I opened the show with July 4th was the Earth's hottest day on record, that there were 17 mass shootings recorded across the country over the 4th of July weekend. Special counsel Jack Smith subpoenaed the Arizona Secretary of State's office as part of his investigation into the January 6th insurrection. Federal Reserve officials signaled that they're not done raising interest rates, and the Secret Service, of course, is investigating how a small baggie of cocaine ended up in the White House. That's somehow in front of or atop of or being reported more than these other stories. And going back to those shootings, you'd be forgiven if you missed this horrible story that took place over the 4th of July weekend or on the 4th of July. But a 40-year-old suspect now in custody after a shooting in Southwest Philadelphia left 5 people dead, wounded a 2-year-old and a 13-year-old. A 2-year-old suspect had multiple guns or a bulletproof vest and had a police scanner. course, a record number of Americans have died in mass killings, 4 or more deaths. That's what that means, excluding the offender. At this point in the year, across 17 years of record keeping, a record number at this point. And we've been doing this for way too long. The police commissioner in Philadelphia, Danielle Outlaw, said the suspect was armed with a semi-automatic rifle and continued to fire as officers chased him through a neighborhood. The 2 kids, by the way, are in stable condition. Oh, and by the way, it was just 2 days ago that the Baltimore mayor, Brandon Scott, had to come out and address a horrible shooting in his city where at least 2 were killed and 30 were wounded in a mass shooting at a Baltimore party on early Sunday morning. The mayor there pleading for federal gun control. But let's head back to Pennsylvania, to Philadelphia, where I've got 2 quick sound bites for you that I think are really powerful. First, here is the mayor of Philadelphia, Jim Kenney, at a press conference after the shooting.
But our officers need help. They need help. They need help with gun control. They need help with keeping these weapons out of these people's hands. I mean, I told you earlier, the 2 little boys the officer had his head grazed just a little bit more, and those 2 little boys will grow up without their dad. Because this government, both on the federal and state level, don't want to do anything about getting these guns off the streets and getting them out of the hands of criminals.
And here is Larry Krasner with an even more powerful statement. He, of course, is the DA down there in Philadelphia.
It is disgusting, the lack of proper gun legislation that we have in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I cannot agree more heartily with the mayor. It is disgusting that you can go to New Jersey and find a whole list of reasonable gun regulation that we don't have, that you can go to Delaware and there's almost as long a list of reasonable gun legislation that we don't have. Some of that legislation might have made a difference here. And it is time for everybody in our legislature, including the ones who would like to walk around with an AR-15 lapel pin, it is time for every one of them to face the voters. And if they're not going to do something, then the voters are going to have to vote them out. Because that's what that lapel pin means. It means vote me out. I am against you, and I am against your safety. And a lot of us have had enough of it. I can tell you I certainly have had enough of it.
Good stuff from Larry Krasner, interesting cat down there doing some things differently as the DA in Philadelphia. If you're familiar with his work, let me know. I think he's doing a pretty good job, but I forget. There was some controversy about him after he was elected. All right, well, let's talk about ghost guns, because apparently that's the kind of gun that was used in this Philadelphia crime. And now Philadelphia has filed a lawsuit to crack down on ghost guns. Mayor Jim Kenney's administration is suing 2 companies that it says are among the largest ghost gun suppliers in Philadelphia. What is a ghost gun? All right, here it is from Axios. They are untraceable, unregistered, and privately assembled via a kit or with a 3D printer. They're increasingly being used in Philadelphia by people who cannot legally purchase firearms, according to officials at this news conference. So the city of Philadelphia has now filed a lawsuit against a company, 2 companies, saying their negligent business practices have allowed ghost guns to flow in the city. Litigation was announced 2 days after this mass shooting left 5 people dead and several injured. Officials were working on the lawsuit before the tragedy and after several of the Philadelphia mayor's previous attempts to rein in gun violence had faltered. The city estimates about 10% or more than 6,000 crime guns seized last year were ghost guns. 6,000 ghost guns, according to the police official. So who knows if that's an accurate statistic, but if it's even close. They also say 87% of the ghost guns recovered in criminal investigations in 2023 were manufactured by this one company, Polymer 80, according to the city. Philadelphia has tried several times to overturn Pennsylvania's firearms preemption law that prevents cities from enacting their own gun regulations. A judge actually cited this law when striking an executive order issued by the Philadelphia mayor last year banning firearms from city recreation centers after a city employee was gunned down. I'll be talking to Chris Brown of the Brady organization about this in the next couple of days. We're exchanging emails trying to make it happen. But it should be said that they've just got victory in Oregon. Mom's Demand is kicking ass on this issue. They just passed a law to prohibit ghost guns and secured more than $21 million in gun safety funding. Mom's Demand action in Oregon. So it can be done. Harder to do, I think, in Pennsylvania. But one of the other issues regarding this ghost gun story is that on Friday, a Texas-based United States District Court judge named Reed O'Connor, appointed by Donald Trump, said that the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, that is supposed to regulate guns, has gone too far in banning the partially made ghost guns that we're talking about. So yet another blow to Democrats' work at the federal level on guns, because a federal judge now has reversed the ban on so-called ghost guns in ruling that the president and his gun agency overstepped their jurisdiction. I'm reading from a conservative outlet. So interesting how the Washington Examiner writes it. They called ATF his gun agency. Wow. Anyway, that's a setback on the issue of ghost guns. I'll be talking with Chris Brown about it, but wanted to give you that information and research I've done on the laws around it real quick for you. If you want to dig more into it, if you want to get involved with your local Moms Demand or anti-gun violence organizations, which are everywhere. They're in your town. Find them, join them, be a part. Some great people, make new friends, and save the lives of innocent people at the same time. I think it's a pretty good deal. A couple other quick things I just wanted to mention. A UPS driver strike looming after labor negotiations strike have broken down. And Stephen Cowings, where are you? I've emailed you. Would love to talk to you about this. Stephen's a great guy, great member of our community who hangs out with us often on Thursday nights. Wonderful family out there in California, and they would be affected by this, I'm pretty sure. So I'd love to get the insider scoop, pal. Let me know. Get back to me. And the only other thing I wanted to mention was that the company that is the parent company of Facebook, Meta, does everybody know that, run by Mark Zuckerberg? They promised Thursday launch for Threads by Instagram, which is their Twitter clone. Some people are referring to it as a Twitter killer, and they launched. Threads launched yesterday, and Mark Zuckerberg writing on Threads in like 5 hours, there were like 5 million people signing up. So here's the New York Times on this. This is a big story. I think it's an important issue. The new app, Threads, was unveiled as a companion to Instagram, the popular photo sharing network that Mr. Zuckerberg's company Meta bought more than a decade ago. If Instagram executives get their way, Threads will replace rival Twitter, with some techies referring to it as a Twitter killer. The rollout of Threads ramps up the rivalry between Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, who bought Twitter last year. Elon Musk has changed the experience of Twitter by tinkering with its algorithm and other features, and most recently imposed temporary limits on how many tweets people could read when using the app, and that has all gone wrong for him. So that's what the New York Times is writing a little bit about Threads. I'm on there. I'm Pete Dominick on Threads. Real-time public conversations with one another. Looks nearly identical to Twitter in a lot of ways, and now there are so many apps that have popped up, it becomes overwhelming. I'm still mourning the degradation of Twitter. I'm still on there probably till the end because it's brought me so much joy over the years. But Anthony Crease, who I love following on Twitter at Georgia State University, works with Eric Siegel, says, I'm low-key sad about these competitor apps because it took so long to build a really lovely community here on Twitter that I'm sure I'll never replicate elsewhere or will live on if everyone fractures. And yeah, I thought that was really well said. I feel that way as well. But I'm on all those other apps. If you want to find me, Post, Mastodon, Sprout, I think I have an account on, but I think I'll probably be posting a lot on Threads and also Blue Sky. You can find me there as well. And I wish we didn't have to do this, but to promote the podcast, which is my work, talking to these smart people every day, you have to do it. Can crap on it and criticize it and make fun of it, as we should, but you have to use these social media networks to advertise, which is free, pretty much. So you should do it if you're selling anything or trying to promote any cause, such as the way of the world in 2023. All right. Well, I hope to see you at tonight's hangout. I'm going to get to my conversation with JL Cauvin right now. I do need you to subscribe to this podcast. If you listen for free and you don't pay anything, well, then you may be freeloading. If you really have no money, then don't feel guilty about it at all. But if you do and you haven't signed up for it, please do. Go to patreon.com/Pete Dominick. And to all of those of you who have upped your subscriptions or been with me for a long time, I am so grateful that I've been able to continue to do this work that I love so much. No amount of thanks can show my gratitude for you supporting me. And I will be here as long as I can be, but we're kind of always on the edge here. The goal has always been 3,000 paid subscribers. I've always thought that's feasible. We certainly have more than that listening to every show, or at least downloading every show. So please sign up. Those are a little insider scoop on what's happening here. We got to make it work. Also, while I've got you, just real quick about the podcast, I may be signing up with a pretty good podcast platform that is owned and operated by a friend of mine, and that will help with promotion, but it'll also come with ads. Those of you who do pay for a subscription will get a free version, rather an ad-free version. So go to patreon.com/Pete Dominic, and I'll keep you updated on if and when I sign up with that platform. All right, let's get to the good part, the fun part. It's my conversation with stand-up comedian, impressionist, and all-around very smart guy, J.L. Cauvin. He's got a new album, of his first special, rather, out today on YouTube. Go check it out at youtube.com/JLCauvin, jlcauvin.com. Check out his podcast. Check out his Patreon, of course, his YouTube, all of his social media. You can pay him to do a cameo, to do a video tailored for someone in your life, which is really funny and thoughtful gift. But just want to say, there are a handful of comedians. Obviously, I talk to them on a regular basis. Christian Finnegan, Ophira Eisenberg, Mara Quint, who's not a stand-up, but is a comedian no less. And J.L. Cauvin, who I love to hear their interpretation on just about anything. JL just happens to be one of those guys, and enough of you seem to agree. So I always love talking to him. Today was no exception. Great conversation. We talked just a little bit about his special, but mostly about the world, the news, politics, psychoanalyzed it all. Let's do it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there he is, tall boy himself, the Lizzo of men's ankles, gay T-Rex. He's eighth of a Wahlberg, everybody. J.L. Cauvin, just a couple references from that new album. Congratulations, it's finally out.
Thank you so much. Yes, this is the one that only took me 2 months from start to finish. You never think your second special is going to be your first special. But then when your first special ends up being a James Cameron film, apparently, your second special becomes your first. It's like if you have two kids, you know, you have that second kid in case something happens to the first.
Spare parts.
Yeah, so this is I'm very proud of it. I'm very happy with it. I did not expect it to be my first. I'm obviously in some respects disappointed it's my first.
Nobody but you cares about the order. We're excited. We're getting two specials out of you. It goes live tonight. Somehow I guess you want people to watch at a certain time. That time is while I'll be hosting my Hangout. I think you should pop into the Hangout and say, launch another window of your browser and watch the special just for the numbers.
No, I'd want the 55 people to all do that. Oh, yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, just tell everyone.
Yeah.
Hey, yes, at 8:59, you're going to get a special drop in to the.
We should. We'll put the link right in there. They can launch another browser.
And at 9:01, I'm leaving.
That's right. Very exciting. Very exciting for that. And it's very funny. I've listened to it. I, of course, love your comedy. There's a lot of you in there, a lot of honesty in there, and you got to be proud that you got this body of work begun. Congratulations, my friend, honestly.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it feels very good. Yeah, that's it. I don't have to be, I can save my bitterness for another week, but that's, it's a good thing. I know the early reaction because it's been up on my Patreon for like a month. I felt like I wanted to give those folks a nice exclusive window. And yeah, now everybody can see it 9:00 tonight. And then obviously, if you're listening to Pete's show later, it doesn't disappear. Please, by all means, watch it, like it, subscribe, share it with friends whenever you can get to it. But this is one of those things you try to communicate to people. I don't have to tell you since you're in this business, but that, yes, purchasing an album is wonderful. Streaming an album is wonderful. Buying tickets to a show, but even simply subscribing and watching videos on YouTube is revenue generating for the performer, and it costs you nothing but a couple clicks.
There you go.
There's always ways for the financially strapped or the tight-fisted to still contribute something.
A simple subscription on YouTube. You have to have a Gmail or a YouTube account yourself, right? Is that how that works?
Gmail.
A Gmail account. So go to youtube.com/JLCauvin. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't get to watch it live, that's where it'll air live. Then watch it.
And while you're listening to this, subscribe now. It's not on. You may be listening to before it goes live, but it's, the channel is there. So yeah, thank you.
lot of important things that I want to ask you about that are happening in the world, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Well, the most important news story in weeks, if not months, in the world, in the political world, is they found somehow cocaine in the White House. And at the briefing today, the White House spokeswoman was barraged with questions. Even the president himself was asked about it. How important of a discovery is the cocaine in the White House? How much news coverage do you think it should be getting? This sounds like a pretty big deal that affects people's lives.
The dry wit of Pete Dominic. Here's the thing. If we were, or as Joe Biden might say, here's the deal, man. If this were 1991 or 1963 or 1927, I would say, yes, this is a country that holds its leaders to a certain standard. That is disturbing that like an illegal drug was found in the White House, whose responsibility is it? Not a national emergency, but it would be more newsworthy before Trump. And I hate, I'm sorry. It's just one of those things where you go, yeah, this should be like, oh, really? Somebody was partying. Somebody did something they shouldn't have done. Okay. It's a story. It's a page 17 blurb that goes away a day later, which it may, but news is like everything else. It's sort of starved for anything that will get clicks. And cocaine found in the White House
clickable
is very clickable.
Clickety,
like that
click.
is.
Yeah, no, agreed. Although I didn't click on it. I saw this a couple days ago, saw the headline, thought nothing. I thought it equivalent to mud coming off an athlete's cleat somewhere in the White House. Like, it meant nothing to me. There's no test for it. You don't look for it. Secret Service doesn't have a threat matrix that includes drugs, period, unless they're huge.
Can I ask a question, devil's advocate? Not to,
please. I want to find the angle as to which this is in the public's interest.
I think the only angle, which I'm sure conservative media is praying for, is Hunter Biden coked up and having I know. I'm just saying he was just at a state dinner. He was, I'm just saying, if this is, we know he's struggling with addiction.
It would be less newsworthy because it would be the guy you'd expect, the guy who's been addicted to it. It would be more newsworthy if it were Jill Biden's cocaine.
I'm combining that with was he, and I'm, like I said, this isn't what I think happened, but it's like, so do you have your coked up son attending state dinners after he gets a sweetheart deal on a prosecution? Like, in other words, I'm like, that is something where you'd go, I don't know if I want like a coked up addict at like important functions. I know. I'm giving you.
Let me tell you.
That's not me.
A coked up addict was at that function and every White House function. His name is Bruce. He works in the kitchen. He's functional. He gets it done. He's on cocaine. Who cares?
Well, I really thought you were going to say Trump Jr.
Well, that's the obvious joke. What do you got on that? By the way, it's, low key, as the kids say, my favorite of your impressions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do
the most acting with it. I really get into my Meisner method for that.
And you cover yourself with white powder on the face. And to me, like, I will sometimes watch it on mute and laugh. I don't even care about the impression or the content. I think it's so much fun that you are covered with cocaine.
Yeah, and that's real cocaine. I'm a method actor.
Wow.
No, I changed I was using Johnson & Johnson baby powder, actually, and then I kept hearing stories about how that stuff causes cancer.
Yeah.
And so I switched to baking soda. So make healthy choices out there, kids.
The new data is it causes shoulder injuries.
Yeah, that's clearly true.
Explain your life. You've had a couple surgeries now and have a lot of funny jokes about that because you were doing drugs as a result of you had painkillers prescribed to you as a result of those surgeries. And I really love that you talked about that on your new album.
Thank you. It's I'm trying to relate to the forgotten Americans that Trump reached out to. So there's a strong chunk on taking opioids.
Do you think that Hunter Biden got a sweetheart deal. I've seen legal analysis of that, and I've seen political analysis of it. And a lot of it says, and I don't know if it's true, most people wouldn't be prosecuted for these crimes, certainly not the gun crime. Usually there's a plea taken, and they probably went extra hard on him because he is the president's son, and also the Justice Department doesn't want to look like it's doing anything special, and then the news media interprets it however they want. Oh, look at this. This guy got off. If it was the rest of us, the rest of us would have gotten off too, apparently. What do you, I don't know. You're a lawyer, and I thought that, what do you think? Legal, political?
Laid off lawyer. I'd like you to put in. Oh, and that's, sorry, I don't make the plea for poverty often. But if any of the sympathetic, strong community of Stand Up with Pete Dominic wants an extra incentive to either buy the album or stream and share the special, I lost my day job 2 weeks ago. So anyway, former lawyer, law degree holding person, J.L. Cauvin. No, from what I read, all I know about this is what I read too. And it seems like this was unless you're listening to foaming at the mouth right-wing media, this seemed to be a very fair, in terms of, even if they went hard on him, from the opposite side, he was treated in a very, I'm not sure what the word is, but a fair meaning not given some sort of special treatment.
Right.
But, I think, I don't know, I want to talk about how Hunter probably got into Yale Law School due to legacy admissions. How about that? Turning it on the head there, thinking I'm going to side with the Biden. No, I don't care.
Well, go ahead and let's pivot to the Supreme Court's decisions. You can pick any of them you want from June. You pay close attention to do this. You're a former lawyer, apparently, who had a job just days ago and probably could have another one at the snap of the fingers if you wanted, if you weren't so committed to your comedy career. Because
nice of you to say that.
Your kids are going to starve to death if you don't get another job.
But then they can get, now that they can't get into schools due to racial considerations, if I fuck up economically, they can get into schools due to poverty. You see, so I'm playing the long game here.
Yeah, no, we did that. It's worked out really well for me.
You zig, I zag. Yeah. Oh, are my quarter black kids not going to get preferential treatment? Well, they're broke and homeless. Can they go to the school now?
Does it matter that A, you don't have kids, and B, you could in the future have a child with a black woman, which would make that child more than a quarter black? I think you're assuming that you would have them with white girlfriend.
Well, it's the one I'm with now.
Yeah, that would make them. Did you get any special consideration as a result of your biracial mix? DNA?
I'm sure I did because, my application said check all that apply. And I remember this from high school. And this is where I hate to say anything. This isn't something good about Clarence Thomas, but it's a finite point of empathy is when he referred to, his vendetta. It's been a decades-long vendetta against other black people, against progressives. But when you get to that point where he's walking around a college campus and being treated with sort of disdain and disrespect as sort of an affirmative action admission.
According to that was his experience at Harvard.
Right. Yeah. Yale, I think he was a Yale law guy.
Same thing.
Go ahead. Holy Cross and Yale.
Got it.
But I remember I was the co-editor of the school newspaper, basketball player going to Williams to play basketball. I took basically all AP classes, did very well on my SATs, and also was biracial. And I remember a friend telling me years later that when I got into Williams, somebody had said something. There was one other girl from my class who got into Williams, and somebody said, Jean-Louis. That's what they called me back then because people used to be able to pronounce French names. I didn't have to Starbucks order my name to JL for the wider population. Somebody there said, he only got in there because his dad's black. Mm-hmm. Now, my resume would defy that. And I guarantee you it was not somebody, as it often isn't, it was not somebody who was going to Harvard, Yale, Princeton. It was probably a lower tier student who I probably had better grades than, had more illustrious extracurriculars, but it was like it's an easy hook for people to saddle you with if they want to. And I think there probably is some of that. I don't think Clarence Thomas on that one point is wrong in terms of, but that's not a reason to get rid of it. But that is an effect. That is a negative effect of that. It's not I'm not raising this as a constitutional issue. I'm just saying, as far as where one percentage of his animus comes from.
Well, but isn't it just a preposterous notion because so many other students, as many have pointed out, also got in as a result of affirmative action, a different kind, having to do with they being a legacy of some wealthy alumni or something like that. That's a form of affirmative action too. It's not like they didn't get special consideration. They don't deserve to be there either. You rich, stupid asshole.
What I would say is, to that, I think obviously constitutionally, there's no con law prohibiting legacy admissions. Like there's no doctrine saying legacy admissions by a school are unconstitutional. Right. Now, states, if they want to, I assume, and once again, I always bring up Eric Siegel because he is a better legal mind and more consistently practices and uses that legal mind. If a state wanted to ban legacy admissions, I assume there would be no deterrent. There's no constitutional or legal impediment to banning legacy admissions. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm like, why wouldn't a state experiment with that and say, okay, we want to ban this as a practice as well? Or would that be unconstitutional for some other reason? I don't know what that would be, but I think the intellectually honest argument against affirmative action, I think I still think it's legislative, not constitutional. Like in other words, California,
sure. Courts
Michigan
should not have decided this. It's up to states if they want to decide it. There's nothing in the Constitution.
Because this is stuff I've read, but I think Ketanji Brown Jackson may have brought this up and other commentators have brought it up, which is for the originalists, these hardcore originalists, like what did the people think when they made this part of the Constitution? Well, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were clearly very race-conscious amendments because they were literally enacted to rectify certain elements, to end slavery, to give citizenship, and then to give the right to vote to certain people, and it was racially based. So it's like to ignore that, but then like, what did the founders think of guns? But what about what did the Congress in 1868 think about citizenship and race? Was this to make us racially neutral and colorblind, or was this to catch up black men, I guess, when you're talking about voting, but like certain black people to closer to full citizenship? It was not, hey, everybody now has, it was like specifically to remedy in a race conscious sort of way. And it's very convenient that they ignore that kind of original intent, because it doesn't mean original intent. It would make no sense if original intent meant, what did they mean in 1787?
Right, they ignore it. They ignore it whenever they want. That's the point. They ignore it whenever they want. Hence the ridiculous.
Hence my book, Originalism as Faith.
Oh, I thought Eric Siegel wrote a book with a similar title.
Well, mine is As Faith is spelled with a Z, because I was listening to a lot of late 90s, early 2000s rap.
Oh, wow. So I did not. I wonder if Eric knows that you wrote a book with this exact same title, except for the S is changed to a Z, because you are so familiar with his work, it would almost seem like you ripped him off. Did you write it before or after his?
Well, mine was written in 2004.
So you actually were the first to write a book with this title, but so he ripped you off. I stand corrected.
I don't want to throw that accusation out there. He might have not seen original. He might have looked up that title and not spelled as right.
He actually has a new comedy album out, also called Tall Boy, which is super weird. That apparently you guys have this. It is spelled a little bit differently, however.
Well, it's a beer. It's his concept album about beer. His comedy album about beer. Of course,
he's much shorter than you. It's just an irony. Right. Yours is more on the head. Let me ask you.
But with affirmative, in general, I think it should be. They ignore that part. If a state wants to ban use of race, that's allowed. Like, that's obviously allowed. And several states have done that. I would just be curious if a state could kind of call the bluff and ban legacy admissions. But when people bring that up, the difference is nobody would argue that legacies are a constitutional issue, I think, whereas obviously with our history, wrong or right, I think it's an important question about using race in college admissions. Yeah. But
let me ask you about a couple of other things, of course, in news and politics. Obviously, nobody does Trump better than you or so many other impressions. How did you feel about that I had comedian Matt Friend on the show? I was hoping you didn't notice, but apparently you did.
I did.
Yeah.
You remember how Johnny Carson felt when Joan Rivers did a talk show, she signed to do a rival late night show after being his friend for decades.
Yes, like he brought her to the dance, and then he felt very. I
don't think he ever spoke to her again.
Yeah, that's right.
So you should just sit here and consider yourself lucky you're not getting the Carson treatment.
I appreciate that. I'm glad that you're here.
I'm a bigger person, literally and metaphorically, than Johnny Carson.
Right,
is what I'm saying.
Right. So
hey, he's a big name. I love some of his impressions. It wasn't his political impressions that caught my eye probably a year or two ago. I think his Howard Stern and his Jeff Goldblum make me laugh a lot. But I also understand that, comedians this day and age, you go for what moves the needle algorithmically.
Yeah.
But I just wish for a world where I didn't have to compete with lip syncing.
Well, my issue with Matt Friend as of now on the record is that he didn't. It's personal that he didn't actually share any of the interview. When you have certain people on the show, you certainly think they're going to promote it, and that's going to help promote you. That's why I had him. I don't have any relationship with him, and he didn't share anywhere that he was on the show. I'm also not sure he knew my name, so I hadn't said that up until now. So you can feel even harbored.
He was like, "You don't look like the guy who fucked Ariana Grande."
He's like, "This is not Pete Davidson." Wow, what a mistake. Your Trump and DeSantis are both very good, and your analysis of those two has turned out to be pretty dead on in terms of what would happen. What are your thoughts?
And they're not even debating yet. Like DeSantis is going to enter debates wounded, and like I said. The analysis, I know it's a joke, but I wrote a blog on it so it would be like kind of preserved and shareable repeatedly. But with DeSantis, Trump has forced DeSantis to just go, like his LGBTQ ad is like absurd.
Yeah.
It's even though it's dangerous.
DeSantis has put out, just in case people don't know, DeSantis has put out an ad that basically...
He's portraying Donald Trump as like a woke ally of the LGBTQ
right, and there's a bunch
of
clips of Trump being in solidarity. Go ahead.
And then like manly men clips from like movies and stuff. It's one of the strangest things ever in terms of a political ad. And it's like the polar opposite of the Daisy ad, like the nuclear bomb ad from '64. Sure. It's the exact opposite. It's like exploding only on Ron DeSantis. It's only like ruining his political chances. But he's doing the thing again, which is like, I just have to keep going more than Trump, and you end up looking absurd. He's got no shot. Like, it's so weird. He should have a shot, but he really, it just feels like he's I mean, not to make that implosion reference.
You can't say that word anymore. Yeah. You
right.
Can't. Yeah.
The I word, the ghosts at the bottom of the ocean are like, that's our term. But he said
they're at the bottom of the ocean
with a hard N. Wow. Wow. But he is doing the Aguilera dirty. That's what I call it. When you try to outdo your rival and you end up going too far.
What a reference. The Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears rivalry.
Trump is the Britney Spears "I'm a slave for you" video, and he went assless chaps too far.
You say that he's making no impact. Is anyone making a dent, laying a hand on Donald Trump's candidacy? Are the legal issues he's in? And what do you think about Chris Christie's performance up until now?
Chris Christie is very strong, I'm not going to lie. But it's also, are we just witnessing like a human Lincoln project in terms of, you know what I mean? In terms of he's putting out the content and giving it to him like unafraid. But at what point does the entire GOP go, oh, okay, you're just a former Republican to us. Like you're no longer moving hearts and minds on this side. You're just enjoyable, righteous clickbait for people who would never vote for Trump. So it's like, it's good. And I think it takes more courage than maybe some people give him credit for, because I think that party is still full of very scary, nasty people.
Nasty people? Also, do it.
These are nasty people. You're a nasty host. That's what you are. You're a very nasty guy. You sit there, you're in your shed. By the way, you probably built it during my administration. Not that you didn't say thank you. And by the way, your failed comedian friend, guess when he was hired? Got this beautiful job at a law firm. 2019. You know who was president then? Yeah, that's right, me. And then all of a sudden he loses it in 2023. Oh, well, who's in the White House? Sleepy Joe. So, I don't know why he's so pro. He's so pro Biden. Biden just took food out of your dog's mouth like a dog. So, and I will say this, what's the clips I've now, I had my editor of Tallboy put together a series of clips for like TikTok and Reels, kind of like made specifically with the graphics and everything to kind of appeal. And of course, the second one I put up from the special is my most watched Instagram reel. All right. And it's a 23-second joke, just a little clip from one of the bits where I say, Donald Trump is basically the stripper pole for broken white men. And wow, it's so funny. D.L. Hughley liked it. Like people who don't even follow me liked it. That's awesome. But the comments, it is so like from the right wing people who see this, they like tell on themselves and don't realize it. Yes. It's like you're watching a 23-second joke. It's a part of one bit from one album. You have no idea who I am, but from that 23 seconds, you are able to condemn me as a person, as a comedian. And somebody wrote, which I actually laughed at, even though they meant it as an insult. They said, go put your N95 mask on. Which I guess that must be code for gay now or something. Yes. I feel like that's like code for. Well, I've been getting a lot of that. I guess it's more a direct as a result of my relationship and conversation with Peter Hotez. They were like, go, you go get your vaccine kind of like thing. It's just like, okay. Right. Like go get a checkup with your doctor every year, pussy. Go eat vegetables and fruit and do cardio. It's very weird. But these people are like to me, the point is, and I had some guy who's like big fan of mine. He goes, I don't like it. I don't like it when you go after Trump's. I think you're a great impersonator, but I don't like it when you go after the Trump supporters. And I was just like, I hate them more than Trump. Did you reply that? No, I wrote something else because I wrote something else more specific. But to me, it's like these people, these are always the warriors who think, and I said this to my brother yesterday, you have the people who, if you're right wing and a left wing person gets offended by something, well, their feelings are pathetic and they're anti-comedy, anti-free speech. They're ruining things because their feelings emanate from a place of very soft, fearful, lack of courage, lack of conviction place. Their fear is a problem. But when a comedian I've never heard of says that me and my ilk are broken white. First of all, I just said broken white men. So you're kind of owning up to it. Like, I'm not a bro. I love Trump because he's so strong.
On yourself part
and I'm
of it.
so offended by this joke by a guy I've never heard of that I have to comment with Trump 2024. No one's heard of this comedian. And I go, exactly, dude. Yeah. Exactly. Like, you're proving my point. And once again, by the way, it's a joke. Because when their feelings get hurt, see, they respond with hostility. It's the idea of like anger, as people have always said. Anger is really sadness disguised. But they think if I'm angry, it's toughness. I'm strong. When the left gets upset because you insulted their trans child or said the N-word to an elderly black couple, well, they're being weak and anti-free speech. That's weakness. And look at them crying and saying they want they want an apology because you said racial slurs or slapped a woman or kicked a kid in the teeth and joked about it or something. Whereas when their feelings get hurt, they get mad and they insult you so that they don't have to realize, oh, my feelings are hurt. And that's okay. Like, that's the thing. They can never own to that because their brand is, no, we don't get, we're tough.
Right. Perfect analysis. You landed it because
but they're sad.
And to be fair, those aren't always, I don't love when people do that. Those are always the same person, but they certainly are often the same person, certainly on social media that are, that do that act that way and behave that way. And speaking of which, we don't.
And I've said one thing I have said to people, and I will say, hey, if you have MAGA relatives or whatever, I'm not telling you not to love your family. I'm not telling you to like disown honestly, like that's family. That's too deep. If you want to make decisions for you, but I'm not going to go, how do you have dinner with they're your family.
Agreed.
But don't ask me to cut them slack. Like, they're not my family. Right. They're part of the political and social problem in this country. I think family is deeper than that, but they're not my family.
Yeah.
I don't want to call them like, some of them are good people. No. People who are still voting for Trump, who are going to vote for him in 2024, I am okay putting all my chips on not good people.
Well, we can categorize them in many different ways and dig deep in terms of them being cultists. A lot of them don't even have a chance. I had some empathy for the dude who showed up outside the Obama's house after Trump gave out his address, Obama's address, with a whole bunch of weapons and, ingredients to make like a Molotov cocktail. I looked at that guy and I saw videos and stuff, and I was like, this dude has never known anything but whatever his political ideology. Like, he was indoctrinated. I'm just guessing. I mean, some people don't even have a chance. They fall right into that lane, that channel from their parents who listen to Rush Limbaugh, to whatever it is, or they had no political ideology and they went down this YouTube rabbit hole. Next thing you know, they're an incel wanting to kill the Obamas.
But where's your moral compass? And I'm sorry to be hardcore about this. It's like there are certain things like hypnotism. Yeah. You have to be susceptible to it to a certain degree. I'm not talking about some kid who grew up in like a bunker somewhere, but I will say this but
that kid is real. That kid's a huge percentage of Americans who grow up in Jesus camp. And then a lot of them tell these amazing stories about, oh, my God, I grew up believing this crazy stuff about religion. Really nuts. I mean, that is a real percentage of America. I feel like
American. I know to a lot of people, religion, exit all out, Christianity, whatever. But I do believe it would really clear so much up if we could just have a faith called American Christianity, where you just put all the Old Testament loving hypocrites and like this Christian nationalism vibe in like this. Oh, okay. And then you'd probably see like, oh, that's the largest denomination in the country. There's 41 million Christian nationalist, Old Testament, who was Jesus again, Christians.
I don't want to belabor the point, or maybe I do. Sure. My point is, you and I both know I'm talking about, in this case, a specific subset of Christians who never even went to public school, who never got exposed to any other ideas but this really strict form of Christianity, which is now certainly a feeder into the Christian nationalist movement. We know that's who I'm talking about. And I'm not saying.
I have a question on that topic. See, because I've had the pleasure of meeting and having some fans who are Church of Latter-day Saints.
Sure.
And South Park has made this joke that, like, hey, even though we think X, Y, and Z about your religion, we've had great interactions with large groups of Mormons who at least the faith in many cases seems to imbue them with, and don't get me wrong, there's plenty of Trump-loving Mormons as well, but it seems almost stereotypical that it's like, yeah, but they're very nice and they actually kind of try to live and practice that sort of good community, good, clean living kind of stuff that you'd expect versus the kind of Pastor Greg Locke, who, by the way, can you have him on your show at some point? Do you not know who Pastor Greg Locke is?
I probably do.
Oh, yeah. I am ashamed to say that I've watched his videos and I'm ashamed to say that, but like, it's really horrific, to be honest. I think I watched them from the safety of New Jersey, but like that dude is like horror movie Christian cult leader level, either villain or grifter. Like he's one of the two, if not both. But I was going to say, when you brought up the people who, the guy who went to the Obama's house, I have a bit on my last album. So if you're listening or watching Tallboy, feel free to go stream Thoughts and Prayers, but it's called Pizzagate. And the whole gist of the joke, which of course got many negative comments from people who were probably like, oh, is this the truth about Pizzagate? Wait a second, I think he's making fun of us. It's about the guy who went to the pizza shop, Comet Pizza.
Yeah.
And I said, now that guy's that's unfortunate. That's deranged behavior. But he did think he was rescuing kids. Like, he may be deranged, but of all the thousands of people who think there was a child sex ring under Comet Pizza, one guy went guns blazing to try and save them. It kind of shows you, like, so you're sick enough to think it's real, and yet still not willing to do anything other than blog and Truth Social about it. Like, it speaks to sort of a distinct gullibility plus laziness.
I don't know if I buy the laziness criticism. I really don't. I think it's...
You think there's a lot of hardworking Americans who wanted to go save the kids from Comet Pizza?
No, I don't think it has to do with hard work, and I don't think it has to do with laziness. I think you're misdiagnosing it and without any empathy, and frankly, almost without intellectualism, because you know...
No, my empathy was for the guy who went. I said, hey...
Well, I know that, but you're...
that's true, but like
I know. No, I'm not saying that.
For kids being abused, you actually tried to do something. I would give him like less jail time than
agreed.
People
no,
who,
I think
disseminate the stuff and do nothing.
I think I hear your point. Fine. I just don't think it's laziness. And I think when we say laziness, it really misses what the danger is. These people aren't lazy. They may be keyboard warriors is a more accurate, but they're out there doing the research in addition to all of the rest of their responsibilities as a person. Let me move on, because I could talk to you about this forever. Don't go look up Greg Locke, by the way. I mean, this guy is absolutely insane. But I do want to ask you about...
Jim Brewer performed in his tent.
Yes. Really?
I saw a video. Like I guess they had some sort of, Faith-a-palooza, and he was part of the live
Brewer,
entertainment.
I know a lot. Obviously, I know a lot about Brewer. For a long time, for a long time, his wife was very religious, and he was resistant to it, or he just that's her thing. And clearly it became his thing, is my understanding. But, oh boy, don't get me started on Brewer. But he texted me during COVID and just about he was just a dick about me being...
So he taking the vaccine, Pete?
Yeah.
He taking the vaccine?
Really good. So Trump this morning basically came out again and called for more protests. And this ties in with what we're talking about. In terms of, where the fever is, where the virus is.
But is he doing the thing again where I'm sorry that I didn't see this yet. Is he demanding protest for me?
Yes.
That to me, it's like, I'm trying to think of the analogy. Usually I have a good one. But it's like, wait a second, like a protest for a movement, for a cause. he's always calling, like, a protest for me is pathetic. It's because it's like, if your movement is, in other words, shouldn't your supporters just be doing this organically if you're really a victim of something, like, and they do care about you? But the idea that he has to be like, everybody get out there and protest for me, please get out. I mean, I get it. I'm here promoting my YouTube special, but if I believed my YouTube special were a social justice cause, I don't think I'd be.
I mean, you could interpret. I suppose if I wanted to be ridiculously generous, you could interpret it as he was saying it was for the country. But even the New York Post framed it as Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump used his social media platform, Truth Social, Wednesday morning to once again call for Americans to protest on his behalf as he faces dozens of felony charges. Which, by the way, we've learned he's been using all these donations for his legal. Yeah. Everybody knew that he was going to be using. That he's running a campaign for president.
Well, that PAC, like in 2020 or 2021,
legal bills.
was like the vagaries of it. It clearly was going to be able to do that.
So the question to you is: do you see anything materializing as we talk about his supporters? You know, they didn't show up in New York when he's indicted there. They didn't show up in Miami when he's indicted there, but just a few. And they're not going to, is my opinion, show up anywhere for him anymore because it's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, I think
when he calls for protest, the immediate reaction and
they're like
adequately
Cowboys fans who can't afford tickets to the game anymore. Like the jail time, the potential for jail time and stuff is like too high a price, but they still they still wear their Trump jerseys.
No
on
doubt
Sunday.
about it. But the nuanced point I'm trying to make is the type of violence that we saw on January 6th.
Oh, gotcha.
We don't see as a result of him calling for more violence. He can call for all the violence he wants, and certainly people will do things like the guy who showed up at the Obamas. And I'm not saying they're lone wolves. I think that's inappropriate because they're not. They're acting on his command. So he is very dangerous. But the idea that there would be some mass protest that would, destroy lives and property, no one's coming out for him. They physically might not be healthy enough.
I think there's only two scenarios because, sadly, if I'm Trump, the sad thing is, You succeed in part because of the apathy of the American people, but now because they're not as engaged as they might be, I think you still need a big ticket item. You need Trump getting jail time, or you need Trump losing in 2024. Like in other words, they are probably on cruise control in terms of their political involvement as a group, as a voting bloc. Some of them, of course, care and are interested, but I think the only caveat here, I think, is if he gets jail time or if he loses again in 2024, that those will be big enough, riled up enough events that you could have some stuff then.
Right. Perhaps. Let me ask you one other kind of thing that happened in the last 24 hours as a result of a large, I don't know if you didn't see this, it's not a problem because it's a larger question. We see Senator Josh Hawley and a lot of other Republicans with this kind of
just got his book on manhood.
He's got a book on manhood. And yesterday he was tweeting about the founders and this being a Christian nation. And he was quoting founders at times not, there's a Patrick Henry quote that he used. It's not true. Patrick Henry didn't say it. But Hawley yesterday tweeted after all that, he said, "I'm told the libs are major triggered by the connection between the Bible and the American founding." For example, and he went on and gave an example. My issue is, earlier you talked about people telling on themselves. I like that phrase now. And I just wrote around this and I want to get your take. I wrote, honestly, I'm not triggered. Every time you say dumb shit in hopes you're upsetting people, you're simply giving up the game that you're playing, and it makes you look weak and pathetic to most people. Sure, I'm triggered by Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley's idiocy, but more than anything else, I'm upset that the impetus for their commentary, for their whole crusade, is to upset a huge segment of the population. What do you think about that?
I think those two, specifically Cruz and Hawley,
Rick Scott the other day, the senator from Florida, is another example, talking about you're not welcome here. You're bad people if you believe that.
Yeah, he's not a serious person. I don't know who I can't believe Rick Scott is a senator, to be honest.
Well,
he's like Mike Pence minus the charisma.
Then talk about Marco Rubio or talk about Lindsey Graham. How are they senators?
That's all in the aggregate, all Republicans have now is needling progressives and getting high fives from the cretins that are in their constituencies. That's it. Like, there's no agenda. It's kind of stunning that we're in a country. I don't give a fuck what you think of Joe Biden. How about this? Forget left, right, Democrat, Republican, woke, tough, whatever. The one guy wants to do the job he's been given, and the other entire party has no interest in doing the job that you send them. Their job is not, the Congress was not envisioned as culture warriors throwing rhetorical bombs every 2 years until they are up for re-election. And that's what one party is like, turning governing into the like live role play social media. It's like, it's fucking insane. They're not even doing the job.
Well,
like, even if like, hey, we're here for conservative policies and whatnot, their main goal is to like, I mean, they become more the party of Boebert and Green and what's his name, Gates.
Yeah,
they're more that party than they would admit. And Hawley and Cruz. What's so pathetic about those two in particular is, and somebody once said, they're not brilliant people. I go, yes, they are. That's what makes this so much more shameful.
Yeah,
those two are insanely bright people. They are so accomplished. They are such strong legal minds, both clerk for Supreme Court.
Yep.
Like, and somebody called like Ted Cruz, one of his Harvard professors, like maybe the most brilliant student I've ever had.
Yep.
So it makes it more shameful that they're like, even though they have the power of being U.S. senators, they're still fucking nerds trying to get the jocks to like them. They're trying to get the high school offensive linemen that come to the rallies to think, hey, the nerds are pretty cool too. They told the libs to fuck off. I guess Cruz and Hawley aren't so bad. And like, it feels like they're still not content with their accomplishments. Be thought leaders and leaders in the conservative movement. It's like, and this brings me back to my original thing I always end up saying with these guys. What's the end game?
Right.
Why aren't you happy being conservative senators and trying to enact some sort of conservative agenda if you think that's
because everybody wants to get a big applause on CPAC and have their own podcast. Ted Cruz is just about being, he has his own podcast. They sell books. The end game, they really are about being known personalities, famous. They're not governing, as you're saying. I mean, I feel like that's the obvious end game.
It's so
staying in power too, being a powerful. That's a powerful. You get a great office. You get senator is a pretty damn good job.
Now, I lost my job as a staff attorney at a big law firm.
Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that.
My point in bringing that up is if that's, I have to now look for another job.
Yeah.
But if I were a partner at the law firm, I would be in a unique position of, unless I'm in some sort of scandal, job opportunities, the level I've achieved in my career is elsewhere. And like you said, it proves, I think, I just came up with this theory on your show, but I think it really feels like the nerds still want to be popular kids in that party. And it's like, Hawley and Cruz are
very popular.
And it's like, you talk about sad. It's kind of sad, to be honest, if you look beyond everything, where it's like, so being a senator and having families and having wealth and power is not enough. It's not enough. Feel like you've accomplished something.
Well, the best example of this, and I'll let you go. I know you got to go, and I had to get your take on this, is Lindsey Graham. He's the best example of this because at least Hawley and Cruz, I'm not saying they're not nearly as hated as Lindsey Graham is. What I saw this weekend,
I think he gets sexual gratification. Actually, Lindsey Graham.
Well, hold on a second. You can make that point. I don't even know if it's a joke.
I love it when a crowd spits in my face.
But he's a Republican in his own state at a Republican rally for Trump being booed. He's one of the two senators, Tim Scott, of course, being the other. What about that? What about going on stage in your state where you have just been reelected and being booed? What is that? What is that thing? What is that ambition? That sexual gratification you're saying?
Yeah, I mean,
I just love it when they boo me like this.
No, I think when he gets his escort, I think he likes to be dominated.
Right.
I think he gives off big big dominate me energy.
Yeah,
I don't
he
know
loves
what
it. You're saying when he went on stage and they were booing him, he's like, okay, all right. He was also aroused. You're saying,
right? It's like, Lindsay, why are you choking yourself with your belt right now?
Like Romy in Succession. It's a similar.
There you go.
Rome.
It's super bizarre that whole there are so few Republicans where I'm just like, and I hate to keep bringing up the Murkowski-Romney examples, but I'm like, if Joe Manchin, the country we need is Mitt Romney and Joe Manchin are the leaders of the Republican Party. And if that's your Republican Party, you can have a sane country moving in the right direction. They will fight you on certain things, but that's who I know Romney is no angel. He's not perfect, but he has these big moments of genuine integrity and pro-American democracy things that, yeah, you can and he's had other moments of sort of what the hell are you doing? Why did you do that? But I mean, Joe Manchin is obviously a registered Democrat, but those guys are so fringe as far as
well, though I would qualify them as they will always do, Kirsten Sinema, the bidding of their corporate donors because they don't have any real ideology, but except for certain things, like they still believe in elections and not lying about the outcome of elect. They're not absolute conspiracy theorists on many issues, although they certainly are. They openly admit to being conspiracy theorists on climate and always have been. And I always want to mention that. You can believe them or not, but Joe Manchin is...
I'm creating a space, I think, trying to create a space that feels like it should be realistic, which is like, hey, if Joe Manchin and Mitt Romney are leading your Republican Party, I can talk shit about them and say they're wrong on certain issues, but we would be a much better country.
Sure, yes, I agree with
that. Was our right-wing party.
Yeah.
And instead... they are basically irrelevancies. Obviously Manchin is very relevant in the Democrat because of his position, but in terms of any kind of right-wing leanings, they're both afterthoughts.
You're making me think of one argument, and I think it matters. I think those names and others probably would have gone the way of the devil on voting rights because the bottom line is they can't survive without making it harder for people to vote. The Republican Party realized that a long time ago. And I think even these less extreme conspiracy theorist types would have probably gone along and have, Liz Cheney and others gone along with voter ID and all these other things that make it harder for Democrats to win.
Which is always strange because it's like you would think some of these people in their very safe seats, because my question would be, but why do you want Republicans to win right now? Like Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, why would you even want this iteration of the Republican Party? Like I see Joe Walsh will sometimes post things and he's been pretty outspoken. Yeah, he's been pretty outspoken about we need to vote for Democrats and Joe Biden until the Republican Party gets its shit together. But I'm like, I think that it needs to be metaphorically burned to the ground.
Yes. It has been to an extent. It has been to an extent. It's never going to be the party. As you said earlier, there is no ideology anymore, unfortunately. It's gone. Whatever they used to be is my feeling.
Yeah, but it's like a zombie now, out of control zombie.
No doubt about it. Great analysis in all ways. I know you have to go. We did almost an hour. I really appreciate you, and I'll plug everything again on the way out, and hopefully we'll see you very soon.
Yes.
Maybe at the Hangout. All right, buddy.
Bye.
All right, there he goes, JL Cauvin. I hope you appreciated that conversation, got some perspective, some insight. I think he's a super smart guy. I tried to keep up with him and make my own points, and I thought it was really good. I always enjoy our conversations, and I would love to hear from you. Who do you like to hear on the show? Who do you want to hear on the show? Who have you not heard on the show? Every week I introduce new voices. Coming up, I've got a conversation with the chief scientist of the World Wildlife Organization. I'm going to drop that coming up today. It's Dr. Rebecca Shaw. Going to be talking with author of The Founding Myth and American Crusade, Andrew Seidel, today. Author and scientist Dr. Peter Gleich is going to join me from the Pacific Institute to talk about water, his new book. Super important, so those are all new voices. But I love the old reliables as well. So let me know who you want to hear. standupwithpete@gmail.com. Hope to see you at the Hangout tonight, and let's let Jon Carroll play us out. By the way, Matty Carlson will be in Kingston, New York at Teresa's place tonight. In Harrisburg, he's playing at Mara's place. If you want to go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and check out all the rest at his Substack, whatamimaking.substack.com. Love to promote my friends, JL, Matty, maybe you, and always Jon Carroll. Take us out, brother. Oh, I should mention, Matty played in East Hampton at Jon Carroll's place with Jon Carroll. Nick Martino was there, and so really very cool. I love to see the connections being made, folks. All right, now, John, take us away.
Red and brown, she's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in. With other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? Cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be froze up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.